My name is Ricardo, and at 34 years old, I built a business empire my academic parents never understood. Growing up with Harvard professor dad and AP English teacher mom, my practical skills were dismissed as worthless compared to fancy degrees. When I finally revealed a glimpse of my success, my father turned purple with rage, screaming, "Get out, you lowlife," in front of our entire extended family. What they never knew, my net worth had quietly grown to $26 million. The very next day, I moved into my custom Florida beach villa. 3 weeks later, everything changed. Before I share this wild journey, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, hit that subscribe button, and get ready for a story about finding success against all odds. I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, surrounded by prestigious universities and constant reminders of what success was supposed to look like. Our family home sat just 2 miles from Harvard Yard, where my father, Professor James, taught economics for over 30 years. My mother, Eleanor, worked as a high school AP English teacher, priding herself on sending dozens of students to Ivy League schools each year. In our household, academic credentials weren't just important, they were the only currency that mattered. My older sister, Sophia, was 4 years my senior and the absolute golden child of our family. She brought home perfect report cards, aced standardized tests without studying, and could recite Shakespeare from memory by the time she was 12. Our parents displayed her academic trophies prominently in the living room display case. Every dinner conversation revolved around her latest achievements or discussions of economic theories and literary analyses that went over my head as a child. From early on, I processed information differently than my family. While they thrived on theoretical discussions and memorizing facts, I learned through hands-on experience and visual demonstrations. My third-grade teacher, Mrs. Davis, was the first to notice this. "Ricardo sees patterns and solutions in ways most adults miss," she told my parents during a conference. They nodded politely but later discussed how I needed to buckle down and learn properly if I wanted to succeed. At 9 years old, I started my first business trading baseball cards. I'd research player statistics, identify undervalued cards, and make trades that consistently increased my collection's value. Within 6 months, I'd turned my initial 20 cards into over 300, including some worth $50 each. When I proudly showed my father, he ruffled my hair and called it a cute little hobby rather than recognizing the business acumen involved. By 12, I'd expanded to mowing lawns in our neighborhood. I saved for a quality mower, created flyers with different service tiers, and built a client base of 15 regular customers. That summer, I earned over $2,000, more money than any of my friends had ever seen. Dad called these ventures my childish hustles during a dinner party, laughing as guests joined in about how I would eventually grow out of it and focus on real education. Middle school brought the annual science fair, where Sophia had previously won 3 consecutive first-place ribbons. Rather than creating the standard volcano or solar system model, I developed a business plan for an eco-friendly lawn care service, complete with profit projections and environmental impact analysis. The judges awarded me second place, but at home, my father questioned why I couldn't do actual science like my sister had. High school proved challenging in traditional subjects. I maintained B- averages in most classes, though I struggled constantly with standardized testing formats. My English essays never quite satisfied my mother, who would sigh and rewrite entire paragraphs to show me the proper way to express ideas. Meanwhile, I excelled in computer science electives and economics when it involved practical applications rather than theory. Everything changed when Mr. Patterson started an entrepreneurship club my sophomore year. For the first time, I found a place where my way of thinking wasn't just accepted, but valued. I joined immediately and quickly became the club's most active member. We developed business models, pitched to local investors, and even launched a student-run cafe on campus that turned profitable within 2 months. During my junior year, I entered the regional Young Entrepreneur Competition with a digital platform connecting students with local odd jobs. I spent weeks refining my presentation, staying up until 2 in the morning to perfect every detail. When I won first place and a $5,000 seed funding grant, it was the proudest moment of my young life. My parents attended the ceremony, but left early for Sophia's college interview prep session. The trophy sat on my desk, rather than joining my sister's collection in the living room. Sophia's acceptance to Harvard during my senior year triggered a week-long celebration. Our home filled with flowers, congratulatory calls, and a parade of visitors bringing gifts. My father ordered a custom cake decorated with the Harvard shield and hosted a dinner party for 20 of their closest friends. "This is what real achievement looks like," he told me as guests toasted my sister's success. By graduation, my resentment had hardened into determination. The entrepreneurship club had evolved into a legitimate small business, generating real revenue. I had already decided college wasn't my path, but I waited until my graduation speech as Class Business Student of the Year to announce it publicly. From the podium, looking directly at my shocked parents, I declared I would be pursuing entrepreneurship full-time rather than attending college. The drive home was silent until we reached our driveway. My father exploded the moment our doors closed behind us. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was, after everything we've done to set you up for success?" The argument escalated until he grabbed the entrepreneurship trophy from my room and threw it in the trash. "This meaningless award won't feed you when you're 30 and still working retail because you lack proper credentials," he spat. That night, as I fished my trophy from the garbage and wiped coffee grounds from its base, I made a promise to myself. I would succeed on my own terms, in my own way, and someday I would make them see just how wrong they had been. At 18, I moved out with exactly $2,400 saved from my high school business ventures. My first apartment was a tiny studio in one of Boston's roughest neighborhoods, with water stains on the ceiling and electricity that worked only when it wanted to. The bathroom sink doubled as my kitchen sink, and my bed was a second-hand futon I found on the street corner. But it was mine, paid for without a penny from my parents, and that made it feel like a palace. I found work at an electronics store, earning just above minimum wage. The schedule was grueling, but I soaked up everything I could about customer behavior, product trends, and sales psychology. During breaks, I sketched business ideas in a worn notebook, calculating startup costs against my meager savings. After closing shifts, I taught myself digital marketing through free online courses, often falling asleep with my face pressed against my second-hand laptop. My first serious venture was a custom phone case business. I invested nearly every dollar I had saved, buying equipment to print personalized designs on blank cases. The quality was inconsistent, shipping took too long, and competition was fierce. Within 3 months, I had lost $1,800 and was back to square one, working double shifts to recover financially. During this time, Sophia thrived at Harvard, making the dean's list her first semester. At the mandatory Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house, relatives swarmed her with questions about classes and professors. When they finally remembered I was there, the only questions were variations of, "So when are you going back to school?" My mother's tight smile never reached her eyes when she introduced me to distant family members. After dinner, Sophia announced she had secured a prestigious summer internship with a consulting firm. The table erupted in applause as she detailed the competitive selection process. My father raised his glass in a toast, his eyes gleaming with pride, before adding pointedly, "This is what happens when you apply yourself instead of floating through life." I excused myself early, claiming an early work shift, though no one seemed to notice my departure. That first Christmas after moving out, I wasn't invited to the family gathering. My mother called to explain they assumed I would be busy with work, since retail has demanding holiday hours. I spent December 25th alone in my freezing apartment, eating ramen noodles and watching Christmas movies on my laptop. The contrast between my reality and the joyful Harvard break stories Sophia posted online couldn't have been starker. By spring, I had hit rock bottom financially. For 3 weeks straight, I ate nothing but ramen noodles, occasionally splurging on an egg for protein. My electricity was shut off twice, and I took showers at the gym where I had maintained the cheapest possible membership. Yet every spare dollar still went toward my next business idea or online course to build my skills. The turning point came when I received a promotional email about a business networking event in downtown Boston. The ticket price was steep, almost a full day's pay, But something told me to go. I scraped together the money, ironed my only dress shirt, and walked 40 blocks to save bus fare. That night changed everything. Among the crowd of seasoned professionals, I met Jackson Stewart, a self-made tech millionaire who had also skipped college. When others at our table dismissed me after learning I had no background, Jackson asked about my business ideas instead. For 2 hours, we discussed my vision for a social media management service targeting small businesses too busy to handle their own online presence. "You know what I see, Ricardo?" he said as we exchanged contact information. "Someone who learns by doing, not by being told. That's rare and valuable. Most people, with fancy degrees, can only follow existing paths, not forge new ones." With Jackson's mentorship, I refined my business model and approach. Rather than trying to serve everyone, I focused exclusively on independent restaurants struggling to establish online presences. I offered 3 months of service at cost to build a portfolio, working nights and weekends while maintaining my day job. The results were impressive enough that all 5 initial clients signed contracts at full price when the trial ended. Within 6 months, my client list grew from 5 to 15 restaurants. I quit the electronics store and moved to a slightly better apartment, though still maintaining a modest lifestyle. Every dollar of profit went back into the business, upgrading equipment, and eventually hiring my first part-time employee to handle basic content creation while I focused on strategy and client acquisition. The contrast with my family life couldn't have been more stark. Sophia's graduation from Harvard featured a lavish party with 200 guests, including faculty and family friends flying in from across the country. That same month, my parents completely forgot my 23rd birthday, not even sending a text message. When my mother called 2 weeks later, her first suggestion was that it's not too late to consider community college if I was struggling, despite my gentle explanation that my business was actually growing. As I approached my mid-20s, the digital marketing agency expanded to include 3 full-time employees and a downtown office space, albeit in the cheapest building we could find. We specialized in helping traditional businesses transition to digital-first models, saving several local establishments from closure during economic downturns. Each success strengthened my confidence, but the emotional toll of my family's continued dismissal created a wound that wouldn't heal. No matter what milestone my business reached, it never seemed to qualify as legitimate success in my family's eyes. At rare family gatherings, my father would introduce me with, "This is Ricardo. He's doing some internet work right now," as if my business were a temporary distraction before returning to the proper path. My mother would follow up with well-meaning but painful offers to help me apply to college whenever you're ready. Behind their words, I recognized something beyond disappointment. There was genuine worry. They truly believed I was destined for failure without academic credentials, that I was making a catastrophic mistake that would ruin my future. Their concern came from love, however misguided, making it all the harder to dismiss. But their inability to see value in a different path than their own created a distance between us that grew wider with each passing year. By my 27th birthday, my agency had expanded beyond social media management into full-service digital marketing. The breakthrough came when we landed our first major client, a regional restaurant chain with 30 locations across New England. The 6-figure contract transformed our finances overnight, allowing us to move to proper offices in downtown Boston and hire specialized talent for different aspects of digital strategy. Following Jackson's advice, I began channeling profits into other investments, rather than just expanding the agency. "Build multiple income streams," he counseled. "Your business is doing great, but never keep all your eggs in one basket." My first real estate purchase was a small apartment building in an up-and-coming neighborhood. The property needed work, but was structurally sound with excellent rental potential. I lived in one unit while renovating the others, learning plumbing and basic electrical work from YouTube videos to save money. Within a year, all units were rented, generating passive income that nearly matched my early agency salary. While my digital agency provided steady revenue, I began exploring opportunities in emerging technologies. Through connections in Boston's startup ecosystem, I gained access to investment rounds typically reserved for established venture capital firms. My approach differed from traditional investors. Having built a business from nothing, I could identify founders with the right mix of technical skill and entrepreneurial grit. The watershed moment came 4 years into my investment journey. An artificial intelligence startup I had backed with $50,000 was acquired by Google for a 9-figure sum. My stake translated to a 7-figure windfall overnight. The next day, I went to work as usual, told no one, and continued living in my modest apartment. The only visible change was a slightly nicer watch that no one in my family even noticed when I wore it to my cousin's wedding. Over the next 3 years, my investment portfolio diversified and multiplied. The marketing agency continued growing steadily, but now represented less than 20% of my net worth. I maintained a deliberately low profile, driving a sensible car and living well below my means. Financial magazines wrote about mysterious angel investors fueling Boston's tech boom, never realizing one was a college dropout whose family still treated him like a disappointment. At a charity gala supporting young entrepreneurs, I met Amanda Wright. Unlike many women I dated who lost interest upon learning I didn't have a degree, Amanda found my journey fascinating. Coming from wealth herself, with family money tracing back 3 generations, she valued self-made success and carried none of the academic elitism I'd grown accustomed to. Old money people are obsessed with how you make it, she told me on our 3rd date. New money people are obsessed with showing it off. But real wealth is built quietly while everyone else is making noise. Amanda encouraged me to enjoy aspects of my success rather than reinvesting everything. Money is a tool, not just for building more wealth, but for creating the life you want, she reminded me. Slowly, I allowed myself small luxuries, better suits, occasional first-class travel for business, dining at restaurants where reservations were made months in advance. Yet during rare holiday visits home, nothing changed. My father still made dismissive comments about playing with computers not being a real career. At my sister's wedding to banking executive Thomas, my parents gave a toast celebrating our brilliant daughter and her equally accomplished husband, both Harvard graduates who represent the best of what dedicated study and proper credentials can achieve. I caught Amanda's eye across the table, both of us silently acknowledging the irony. By my 34th birthday, my net worth had reached $26 million. The majority remained invested in technology ventures, real estate holdings, and other assets, managed through a private holding company with a deliberately boring name. My digital agency had offices in 3 cities, though I had promoted my first employee to CEO so I could focus on investment strategies. Amanda and I had been discussing marriage, and both wanted a place that felt truly ours, away from Boston's constant reminders of academic pedigree. During a weekend trip to Florida's Gulf Coast, we discovered a breathtaking property. 7,000 square feet of modern architecture set on 2 acres of pristine beachfront. The villa featured 7 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, an infinity pool overlooking the ocean, and a private beach access point. The asking price was $22 million. After careful negotiation and assessment, we purchased it for $19 million, with an additional $2 million allocated for customization and interior design. The transaction was handled through my holding company, with zero publicity and complete privacy. For the first time, I allowed myself to fully embrace my success. We selected every detail of the renovation. A state-of-the-art home office, designed for running my business empire. A chef's kitchen that could handle elaborate entertaining, a home theater with technology most commercial cinemas would envy. It would be ready for move-in within 3 months, assuming no construction delays. While planning our eventual relocation to Florida, I decided it was finally time to be honest with my family about my success. Not to rub it in their faces, but to clear the air and perhaps build a more authentic relationship moving forward. My father's 65th birthday celebration, planned for the following month, at my parents' suburban Boston home, seemed like the perfect opportunity. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Amanda asked, as we packed for the weekend trip to Boston. "They've had over a decade to ask about your business or show genuine interest. Why now?" "Because I'm tired of living a double life," I replied, "and because I finally don't need their approval anymore." Little did I know how catastrophically that revelation would unfold, or how quickly our moving timeline would accelerate. The evening of my father's 65th birthday arrived with perfect early autumn weather. Amanda and I checked into a luxury hotel near my parents' home, though we told them we were staying at a place downtown. I carefully selected my outfit. A tailored suit, subtle enough not to draw attention but of obviously excellent quality if anyone bothered to notice. Amanda wore an elegant black dress with a single strand of pearls, understated yet refined. We arrived precisely on time, a bottle of rare Japanese whiskey in hand as my father's gift, alongside a first-edition economics book I'd spent months tracking down through collectors. The suburban home looked exactly as it had throughout my childhood, down to the immaculate garden my mother maintained, and the Harvard flag hanging by the front door. My mother greeted us with a quick hug that barely made contact. "Oh good, you found the place," she said, as though I hadn't grown up there. My father shook my hand formally before embracing Amanda with significantly more warmth. "So lovely to have you join us," he told her, the implicit message being that she was welcome despite her choice of partner. The house was already filled with extended family. My father's brother, Uncle Frank, a tenured professor at MIT, my mother's sister, Aunt Catherine, chief of surgery at Massachusetts General, various cousins with equally impressive credentials. Sophia arrived 30 minutes late with her husband, Thomas, timing I recognized as deliberate to make an entrance. "Sorry we're late," Sophia announced to the room. "Thomas had an emergency call with Singapore that couldn't wait. You know how it is when you're handling investments of that size." Several relatives nodded appreciatively while Thomas accepted a drink, explaining in unnecessary detail about market fluctuations in Asian markets. Dinner seating placed Amanda and me at the far end of the extended table, while Sophia and Thomas sat beside my parents. Throughout the appetizer course, conversation revolved around Thomas's recent promotion to senior vice president at his investment bank. The youngest in the firm's history, my father announced proudly, as though Thomas were his own son. "And we've just closed on our new house," Sophia added, touching Thomas's arm. 5 bedrooms in Beacon Hill. We completed against 3 other bidders. But once they saw Thomas's credentials and position, they practically handed us the keys. My mother beamed. "Just think, James, both our children living in such nice places now." She turned to me with what she probably thought was inclusiveness. "Ricardo's apartment has a lovely view of the park. Don't you, dear?" I smiled and nodded, catching Amanda's subtle eye roll. We had agreed to wait until after the main course before mentioning anything about our Florida property. When presents were opened after dinner, Sophia and Thomas presented their gift with ceremony, an expensive watch from a Swiss manufacturer, which my father immediately put on. "Only the best for the man who taught me the value of excellence," Sophia said, raising her glass. When my turn came, my father unwrapped the first edition book with polite interest, thanking me briefly before setting it aside. The whiskey received slightly more enthusiasm until Thomas mentioned he could have gotten the same bottle through my client at a significant discount. As coffee and dessert were served, Uncle Frank turned to me. "So, Ricardo, still doing that internet thing? Making websites and such?" His tone carried the same dismissive quality it had since I was 20. My mother jumped in before I could answer. "Ricardo is still finding his way," she explained, as though I were not sitting right there. "Not everyone blooms at the same time." Thomas snorted quietly into his whiskey. Across the table, Cousin Julia began describing her husband's new position at Google, which of course required his Stanford computer science degree and MIT doctorate, she emphasized while glancing in my direction. Amanda squeezed my hand under the table. I could feel her tension on my behalf, the quiet rage at how my family spoke about me, as though I were a disappointment to be explained away, rather than a successful adult sitting among them. My father stood to give a toast, glass raised. "As I mark 65 years, I'm grateful for so many things, but nothing more than seeing the next generation carrying forward our family's commitment to academic excellence. Education has been the foundation of every success in my life, and remains the only true path to achievement in this world." Several guests nodded in solemn agreement. I felt something shift inside me, a final thread of hope for understanding snapping clean. Before I could reconsider, I spoke up. "I think there are actually many definitions of success beyond academic credentials," I said, my voice calm but clear. Some of the most successful people I know never finished college. The table fell momentarily silent before Thomas laughed, breaking the tension for everyone except me. Yes, well, there's success, and then there's success, isn't there? Real careers with advancement potential require proper credentials. That's just reality. Several relatives chuckled, clearly relieved someone had put this nonsense in its place. My father smiled tightly, clearly annoyed at the disruption to his toast. Speaking of different kinds of success, I continued. Ignoring the warning squeeze, Amanda gave my hand. Amanda and I recently purchased a property in Florida. We're quite excited about it. Florida? My mother repeated, as though I'd said Mars. Whatever for? We fell in love with a place on the Gulf Coast, Amanda added smoothly. The climate is wonderful year-round. Thomas swirled his whiskey. Probably one of those timeshare deals. Be careful with those, Ricardo. The fine print can be tricky for people without legal backgrounds. He winked at Cousin Julia, who smirked. Actually, I said, taking out my phone, it's a private villa, 7,000 square feet, 7 bedrooms, private beach access. We close next month, but the renovations are nearly complete. I showed them a photo of the property that our real estate agent had sent last week. The magnificent structure gleamed white against the blue Florida sky, palm trees framing its modern lines. This is your vacation rental? My mother asked, confused. No, our primary residence. We're relocating permanently. Thomas barked a laugh. Right, and I'm buying the Brooklyn Bridge. These internet millionaires living in Fantasyland. He turned to my father. James, you should talk to Ricardo about responsible financial planning before he gets himself into trouble with delusions of grandeur. I looked directly at my father, whose face had turned an interesting shade of red. Rather than the pride or even curiosity I might have hoped for, I saw only anger building behind his eyes. This property costs $19 million, plus renovations, I said quietly. We purchased it outright. No mortgage. Impossible, my father snapped, wine glass gripped tightly. What kind of fool do you take me for? I'm not trying to fool anyone, I replied. My net worth is currently around $26 million. My digital marketing agency has offices in 3 cities. I have investments in tech startups, commercial real estate, and a venture capital portfolio. I employ 47 people directly, and my companies have created jobs for hundreds more. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Thomas seemed temporarily speechless. My mother's hand covered her mouth, eyes wide with either shock or disbelief. I couldn't tell which. My father stood suddenly, knocking over his wine glass. Red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like blood as he pointed at me, face contorted. "Get out, you lowlife!" he shouted, voice echoing through the dining room. "How dare you come here on my birthday and tell such outrageous lies, mocking everything this family stands for, with your fantasies of wealth without education." Every eye at the table was fixed on us. Some guests looked horrified, others embarrassed. Sophia stared at her plate, refusing to look up. I stood slowly, placing my napkin beside my half-eaten dessert. "Thank you for making this easy," I said quietly. Amanda rose beside me, dignity intact despite the scene unfolding. "I didn't come here to hurt you," I added, looking around the table. "I came hoping that after 15 years, there might be room for understanding different paths to success. I see now that was naive." We walked out without another word, ignoring my mother's confused calls from the doorway as we got into our waiting car. Back at our luxury hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed, emotions finally catching up with the evening's events. "Are you okay?" Amanda asked softly, removing her earrings. I considered the question seriously. You know what's strange? For the first time in my adult life, I think I actually am. The morning after my father's disastrous birthday dinner, Amanda and I sat having breakfast on our hotel balcony overlooking Boston Harbor. The fallout from the previous night hung between us, though not unpleasantly. There was something freeing about having everything in the open, regardless of the reaction. "I think we should move immediately," Amanda said suddenly, setting down her coffee cup. "Why wait 3 months when the villa is essentially ready? The final decorative touches can happen while we're there." I considered this. Our original plan had been to transition gradually, spending a few weeks in Florida before the holidays, then moving permanently after New Year's. But now, the idea of staying in Boston, fielding inevitable calls, and dealing with family drama felt exhausting. You know what? You're right. Let's take control of this narrative. I picked up my phone and called our villa property manager, who confirmed the main living spaces were complete and entirely livable. The pool was filled, security systems active, and the kitchen fully functional. Only some guest bedrooms and decorative elements remained unfinished. We can have everything prepared for your arrival within 48 hours, Mr. Richardson, she assured me. When would you like the staff to expect you? Tomorrow evening, I replied, making eye contact with Amanda, who nodded encouragingly. We'll be flying in directly. After ending the call, I contacted our private aviation service to arrange transportation. Having used charter flights for business travel over the past few years, I had established a relationship with a company that maintained a fleet of luxury jets. Another detail my family never knew about. We spent the day packing our hotel room and making arrangements. Neither of us mentioned the multiple missed calls from my mother and sister that continued to light up our phones. Those conversations could wait until we were settled on our terms, in our space. The following afternoon, we boarded a sleek Gulfstream jet at a private terminal outside Boston. As the aircraft lifted into clear skies, I watched the city where I'd grown up disappear beneath us. For the first time, leaving didn't feel like escape or avoidance. It felt like progress. 3 hours later, we landed in Florida. A black SUV waited on the tarmac to drive us the final 30 minutes to our new home. As we turned into the private driveway, the villa came into view, more breathtaking than even the photographs had captured. Modern white architecture gleamed against the dusky sky, expansive glass reflecting the sunset over the Gulf of Mexico. "Welcome home, Mr. and Miss Richardson," our property manager, Diane, greeted us at the entrance. "Everything is prepared as requested." Stepping across the threshold felt momentous, like crossing an invisible boundary between my past and future. The foyer opened to a great room with 20-foot ceilings and walls of glass, showcasing panoramic ocean views. Tasteful furnishings in coastal tones created a sense of relaxed luxury without feeling pretentious. "Would you like a tour?" Diane asked, though she must have seen our eagerness to explore. The following hour was a parade of one stunning space after another. The chef's kitchen featured top-of-the-line everything, with Italian marble countertops and appliances that looked like they belonged in a Michelin-starred restaurant. Our personal chef, Michael, had already stocked the pantry and prepared a welcome dinner that awaited us whenever we were ready. The infinity pool seemed to merge directly into the ocean beyond, creating a seamless blue vista from the extensive patio area. A covered outdoor kitchen and dining space allowed for year-round entertaining with the sound of waves as a backdrop. Inside, the home theater put commercial cinemas to shame, with custom leather recliners and acoustic design that made sound feel three-dimensional. The gaming room beside it would have made teenage me weep with joy, featuring every console available and a virtual reality setup in its own dedicated space. The master suite occupied the entire east wing of the upper floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing sunrise views over the water. The bathroom resembled a luxury spa more than a residential space, with a soaking tub positioned to enjoy the same spectacular vista. "I saved your office suite for last," Diane said, leading us to the west wing. "We followed your specifications exactly." The double doors opened to reveal my dream workspace. 2 walls of windows provided abundant natural light without glare on the 3-monitor setup, integrated into a custom desk. A separate conference area could accommodate virtual or in-person meetings, while a comfortable seating area created space for more relaxed discussions. Every technological need had been anticipated, with connectivity and processing power that surpassed most corporate headquarters. "It's perfect," I said simply, trying to absorb the reality that this was mine, not rented, not borrowed, not temporary. Mine, earned through my own efforts despite every dismissal and discouragement. "I had an idea," Amanda said later that evening as we enjoyed our welcome dinner on the patio, waves providing gentle accompaniment to our conversation. "What if we document this moment properly?" She explained her thinking. "For years, my success had remained hidden, partly by choice, but largely because my family had never shown interest. Now that everything was in the open, Why not claim the narrative completely? We composed a simple social media post together, a sunset photo of us on our new beachfront, with the villa partially visible in the background. The caption read only, "New beginnings in our Gulf Coast home. Grateful for this next chapter." We tagged the location, an exclusive area well known enough that anyone familiar with real estate would recognize its significance. Within minutes of posting, notifications began flooding in. Business contacts expressing congratulations, friends requesting visits, acquaintances reacting with varying degrees of surprise. My cousin Ethan, always the family gossip, texted almost immediately, "Is that seriously your house?" I left it unanswered. As we prepared for bed in our new master suite, Sophia called for the third time that day. This time, I listened to her voicemail. "Ricardo, please call me back. I don't understand what happened last night or what's going on with these photos online. Are you really in Florida right now? How could you afford that house? Why didn't you ever tell us about your business? Dad is absolutely beside himself, and Mom hasn't stopped crying. We deserve some explanation." My mother's message came shortly after, her voice wobbling between anger and confusion. "Honey, please call us. Why wouldn't you tell us about your success? We're your parents. We've always wanted what's best for you." The contrast between her words and 15 years of dismissive treatment was so stark it almost made me laugh. Notably absent was any message from my father. 2 days passed before I received a text from him, consisting of only 4 words. "We should talk, soon." No apology for his outburst. No congratulations on my success. No acknowledgement of his 15-year mistake in judgment. I decided not to respond to any of them immediately. This moment belonged to Amanda and me, not to family drama or explanations. The following week brought a flurry of activity as we settled into our new home. An architectural magazine requested permission to photograph the property for a feature on modern coastal design. Staff completed the remaining guest bedroom setups, while local landscapers finalized the tropical garden surrounding our pool area. Amanda's parents visited briefly, bringing housewarming gifts and genuine excitement for our new chapter. The contrast between their reaction and my family's couldn't have been more apparent. Her father, a successful attorney who had built his practice from nothing, shook my hand with respect between equals. "You've built something remarkable here, both in business and in this home," he said. Never let anyone diminish that achievement. After they left, I finally called Sophia back, 10 days after our dramatic exit from the birthday dinner. The conversation was difficult, with her oscillating between demanding explanations and expressing hurt about being kept in the dark. "You never asked, Sophia," I said simply. "Not once in 15 years did you or Mom or Dad ever ask how my business was really doing. You made assumptions and treated me accordingly. But $26 million, Ricardo? A house that costs more than most people earn in a lifetime? How could you keep something that significant from family?" "The same way you keep your marriage problems from Mom and Dad," I replied quietly. Her sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit a nerve. "What are you talking about?" "I'm not blind, Sophia. The way Thomas talks to you, the tension between you at dinner. The perfect Harvard power couple isn't so perfect behind closed doors, is it?" She was silent for so long I thought she might have hung up. "That's different," she finally whispered. "They would be so disappointed." Exactly. Different circumstances, same dynamic. We both hide things to avoid their disappointment, because their approval has always been conditional on meeting their definition of success. We agreed to speak again the following week, with clearer boundaries established. I scheduled a video call with my parents for exactly 2 weeks after our move, giving myself time to process my thoughts and emotions before facing them directly. Meanwhile, life in our new community developed its own pleasant rhythm. Morning walks on our private beach became a daily ritual. Local restaurant owners greeted us warmly, appreciative of newcomers who made efforts to support small businesses rather than just the exclusive clubs. I ran my investment portfolio remotely from my home office, finding the sound of waves surprisingly conducive to clear decision-making. For the first time in my adult life, I felt completely at home, not just in the physical space we'd created, but in my own skin, free from the constant undercurrent of disapproval that had followed me since childhood. The sensation was so unfamiliar it took me weeks to identify it properly. peace. Life at the villa settled into a pleasant routine as we approached the 3-week mark of our sudden relocation. Mornings began with coffee on the terrace, watching dolphins play in the Gulf waters. I would spend midday in my home office, running my business empire through video calls and digital dashboards, while enjoying the luxury of stepping onto the beach whenever I needed to clear my head. The scheduled video call with my parents finally arrived. I set up my laptop in the casual seating area of my office rather than at my desk, wanting to create a more personal atmosphere despite the difficult conversation ahead. Amanda offered to join me for support, but I declined, feeling this particular discussion needed to happen without buffers. My father appeared on screen first, sitting stiffly in his study with academic awards visible on the wall behind him. My mother joined seconds later, her face showing signs of stress I hadn't noticed at the birthday dinner. "You look well," she opened awkwardly, as though we were distant acquaintances rather than family. "Florida agrees with me," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "How are you both doing?" After brief pleasantries that felt forced from all sides, my father cleared his throat. "I think we need to discuss your financial situation." No apology for his outburst, no acknowledgement of the hurt his words had caused. His primary concern appeared to be understanding the finances, as though verifying the validity of my claims was more important than repairing our relationship. "How much money do you actually have?" he asked bluntly. "And how did you acquire it?" I explained the growth of my digital marketing agency, the strategic investments in technology, startups, and my real estate portfolio in broad strokes. As I spoke, I watched his expression shift from skepticism to something approaching reluctant belief. "Why would you keep all this from us?" my mother interjected. "We're your parents, Ricardo. Don't we deserve to know about your life?" The question carried such genuine confusion that I almost laughed. "Mom, both of you made it clear from the beginning that my path wasn't valid. Every time I shared a business milestone, it was met with dismissal or suggestions that I should still consider college. After a while, it seemed pointless to share anything. We were concerned about your future," my father insisted, leaning toward the camera. "Everything we did came from wanting security and success for you." "No," I corrected gently. "Everything you did came from wanting me to succeed in ways you understood and valued. When I found success through a different path, you couldn't see it because it didn't match your definition." The conversation continued in circles for nearly an hour. My father struggled to see beyond his traditional metrics of success, focusing on questions about my investment strategies and tax planning rather than addressing the emotional distance his attitudes had created. My mother showed more willingness to understand, though she oscillated between pride in my achievements and hurt about the deception of not sharing my wealth. "I'd like us to try rebuilding our relationship," I said as the call neared its end. "But it has to be based on mutual respect for our different paths. I won't accept being treated as less accomplished because my success didn't come through academia." They agreed, though my father's nod seemed more resigned than enthusiastic. We ended with tentative plans for them to visit Florida in the coming months, once everyone had time to process recent events. The following Saturday afternoon, Amanda and I were enjoying a quiet lunch by the pool when our security system announced visitors at the gate. The video feed showed an unexpected sight: Sophia and Thomas standing beside a rental car, luggage visible in the back seat. "Did you know they were coming?" Amanda asked, surprised. "Not a word," I replied, equally confused. After a moment's hesitation, I authorized their entry. Their car pulled up to our circular driveway 5 minutes later. Watching them step out and take in the full scale of our villa for the first time, I saw Sophia's mouth literally drop open. Thomas's expression was harder to read, a mixture of surprise and something that looked suspiciously like resentment. "Surprise visit," Sophia called with forced cheerfulness as I met them at the front door. "We thought since we had some vacation days, we'd come see this famous house in person." The first moments in the grand foyer were awkward. Thomas whistled low, looking up at the chandelier and open staircase. Well, you weren't exaggerating after all," he said, as though bestowing a compliment. Amanda, ever gracious, offered to show them around while I arranged for staff to prepare a guest room. The tour elicited increasingly strained reactions from Thomas, whose comments became progressively more backhanded. "Lucky timing on that Google investment," he remarked in my office. "Right place, right time, I suppose." not something you can really replicate with skill. Later, by the infinity pool. Quite the place for someone without formal financial training. Hope you've got a good wealth manager keeping an eye on things. Sophia, meanwhile, seemed genuinely impressed yet uncomfortable, praising the surprisingly tasteful design choices as though she'd expected something garish. The tension was palpable by the time we sat down for dinner on the oceanfront terrace, with our chef serving a 4-course meal that would have impressed even Boston's finest restaurants. Thomas drank heavily throughout the meal, each glass of wine loosening his facade of polite interest. By dessert, he was openly dismissive. "All very impressive for new money," he said, gesturing broadly at our surroundings. "But there's something to be said for established careers with institutional backing, less volatile than startup gambling." Sophia touched his arm in warning. "Thomas, please, we're guests here." "What? I'm paying your brother a compliment. He's done remarkably well for someone without proper credentials. That's worth acknowledging." The condescension in his tone made the intended insult clear. As coffee was served, Thomas abruptly asked about my exact net worth, as though demanding verification. When I politely deflected, he became increasingly insistent. "Come on, Ricardo. Family here. Just between us, Harvard men." He laughed at his own joke, ignoring how Sophia tensed beside him. "Seriously, though, what's the actual number? Because property values in markets like this can be tremendously inflated." "Thomas, stop," Sophia hissed. "What? I'm showing interest in his business. Isn't that what you wanted?" He turned back to me. "I'm just saying, 19 million for a beach house is extraordinary leverage for someone your age without institutional backing. Debt can be dangerous." "We don't have debt on this property," Amanda interjected calmly. "As Ricardo mentioned at your father-in-law's birthday, we purchased it outright." Thomas's expression soured further. "Well, that's just financially unsound. Any wealth manager would tell you to leverage appreciating assets, and not everyone needs to finance their lifestyle with debt." "Thomas," Sophia snapped suddenly, her voice carrying unexpected bite. The table fell silent. Thomas stared at his wife in obvious shock, before his face darkened with anger. "What exactly is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Forget it." She looked away, but the damage was done. "No, please, share with the class, Sophia." Thomas's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. "Since you're suddenly an expert on our finances." What followed was the public collapse of their carefully constructed facade. Thomas accused Sophia of undermining him, while she fired back about his excessive spending and professional insecurities. Years of private tension erupted at our dinner table until Thomas finally stood, knocking over his chair. "I need some air," he announced, stalking toward the beach access path, glass of whiskey still in hand. Sophia sat frozen, tears streaming silently down her face as the ocean breeze carried away the last echoes of their argument. "I'm so sorry," she whispered after a long moment. "I've ruined your dinner, your beautiful home." "You haven't ruined anything," Amanda assured her, moving to sit closer. "Would you like some time alone with your brother? I can check on the kitchen." When Amanda had tactfully departed, Sophia looked around to ensure Thomas was out of earshot before finally meeting my eyes. "It's all falling apart, Ricardo," she confessed. "The perfect marriage, the perfect career path, all of it. Thomas has a gambling problem. We're drowning in debt, hidden credit cards, online poker accounts. The house in Beacon Hill has 2 mortgages against it already." We moved to the more private seating area on the beach, where she unburdened years of secrets in the darkness. The Golden Harvard couple was a carefully maintained fiction. Thomas had been passed over for promotion twice before his recent advancement. Their lavish lifestyle was financed almost entirely through debt, with minimum payments stretching their considerable salaries to the breaking point. "I can't tell Mom and Dad," she said, voice breaking. "They think we're this incredible success story, the perfect Harvard outcome. How can I tell them it's all smoke and mirrors?" The irony wasn't lost on either of us. The child they'd championed was living a precarious financial fiction, while the one they'd dismissed had built genuine, substantial wealth. "The pressure of maintaining this perfect image is crushing me," she continued. "Everyone expects Thomas and me to be these flawless examples of what education and connections can achieve. I haven't had a peaceful night's sleep in 3 years, Ricardo. I'm constantly terrified the whole facade will collapse." For the first time in our adult lives, Sophia and I connected genuinely, without competition or the weight of our parents' expectations between us. Despite years of feeling secondary to her in our family dynamic, I found myself wanting to help, not out of obligation, but because beneath the painful history, she was still my sister. "We can figure this out," I told her, putting an arm around her shoulders. "Financial problems have solutions, but you need to be honest with yourself about what kind of life you actually want, not what mom and dad want for you." The following morning, my parents called requesting an in-person visit the next week. I agreed, but set clear boundaries. They would come as guests respecting our home and life choices, not as judges or critics. To my surprise, they accepted these terms without argument. As Sophia and Thomas departed Sunday evening, after an awkward, largely silent breakfast where neither acknowledged their public argument, I found myself in an unexpected position. The family that had dismissed my path for so long was now looking to me for stability and solutions. Amanda watched their car disappear down our driveway, then turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Are you ready for this? Becoming the family foundation when they've spent years treating you as the weak link?" I considered her question carefully. "I think I am. Not to prove them wrong anymore, but because I'm finally secure enough in myself to help without keeping score." Perfect Florida weather greeted our family housewarming weekend, as though even nature approved of this new beginning. Brilliant sunshine sparkled across the Gulf waters, visible from every west-facing window of our villa. The gentle breeze carried just enough coolness to make outdoor gatherings comfortable, with palm trees swaying lazily against the cloudless blue sky. My parents arrived first, their tentative steps into our foyer revealing their discomfort. My father's eyes widened involuntarily as he took in the soaring ceilings and panoramic ocean views. My mother clutched her purse like a shield, overwhelmed by the tangible evidence of success she had never believed possible. "This is quite something," my father managed, his academic vocabulary failing him for perhaps the first time in his life. I recognized the struggle in his expression, reconciling the son he had dismissed with the undeniable evidence of achievement surrounding him. "Let me show you around," I offered, deliberately casual. The tour proceeded with minimal conversation, their silence speaking volumes, as each new space revealed another aspect of our life they had never imagined. The chef's kitchen with its commercial-grade appliances, the infinity pool merging seamlessly with the horizon, the private beach access where staff had arranged comfortable seating for afternoon relaxation. The most revealing moment came when I showed them my office. My father stopped abruptly in the doorway, his attention caught by something on the far wall. Among my business awards and recognition plaques hung a familiar object, the entrepreneurship trophy he had thrown in the trash 15 years ago. I had retrieved it that night, cleaned it, and carried it with me through every apartment and office since. My mother touched her hand to her mouth, tears forming in her eyes. "You kept it all this time?" "It was the first validation that my path might be valid," I replied simply, "even when you couldn't see it." Extended family arrived throughout the afternoon. Uncles, aunts, cousins, each reaction a mixture of genuine congratulations and poorly concealed envy. Uncle Frank, who had dismissed my internet thing for years, now wanted detailed investment advice. Cousin Julia, whose Stanford-educated husband had featured in so many comparative discussions, suddenly found my career path fascinatingly innovative. Sophia arrived without Thomas, quietly confirming they had separated temporarily while he entered treatment for his gambling addiction. She seemed both fragile and relieved, as though setting down a heavy burden after carrying it too long. Several relatives raised eyebrows at Thomas's absence, but Sophia handled questions with newfound confidence, no longer pretending their life was perfect. As sunset approached, our private chef served dinner on the beach, tables arranged on a wooden deck built specifically for oceanfront dining. Tiki torches and string lights created a magical atmosphere as waves provided a gentle soundtrack to the gathering. Even my most critical relatives fell silent with appreciation as the first courses arrived, beautifully presented and showcasing local seafood. During a quiet moment between dinner and dessert, my father asked if we might speak privately. We walked to a secluded deck area at the property's edge, where the sound of waves provided privacy from the main gathering. For several long minutes, he simply stared out at the darkening horizon, seemingly gathering thoughts that didn't come easily. "I've spent my life believing there was only one path to meaningful success," he finally said, voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "Academic achievement, credentials, institutional recognition. It's how my father measured me, and how I measured both you and your sister." He turned to face me directly, the torchlight highlighting the new lines in his face. "I struggle to say this, Ricardo. My pride. It's been a lifelong weakness, but I was wrong about your path. Profoundly, fundamentally wrong." The admission hung between us, imperfect but sincere. This wasn't a complete transformation or instant healing of our relationship. Real life doesn't work that way. But it was a genuine first step. "My father was ruthless about achievement," he continued, revealing a vulnerability I'd never witnessed. "Nothing I accomplished was ever quite enough. I realize now I carried that same impossible standard forward, creating the same pressure for you and Sophia. The irony is that Sophia was drowning under the weight of those expectations," I noted, "while I found freedom by walking away from them entirely." Later that evening, my mother found a moment alone with me in the kitchen as staff prepared dessert. Her apology came more easily than my father's, with tears and a genuine desire to understand what she had missed all these years. "I just wanted security for you," she explained, reaching for my hand across the counter. "I never imagined you could build all this through a different path. I should have seen your gifts for what they were, not what I expected them to be." The most surprising conversation came from Sophia, who joined me for a sunrise walk on the beach the following morning. "I need your advice," she said, something I'd never heard from my academically gifted sister, about starting over. Finding my own path instead of the one laid out for me. "You want business advice from the family dropout?" I teased gently. "I want life advice from someone who had the courage to define success on his own terms," she corrected. Something I never did. Despite our complicated history, I found myself genuinely wanting to help. The sibling rivalry that had defined our relationship suddenly seemed petty compared to the opportunity to build something new. I offered to help her navigate the financial mess Thomas had created, not as a savior but as a brother who happened to have relevant skills. As the weekend drew to a close, we gathered for a family photo on the beach at sunset. Unlike the perfectly posed, achievement-focused images that had decorated our parents' home throughout childhood, this picture captured something more honest, an imperfect family beginning to see each other clearly for perhaps the first time. My father shook my hand before departing, adding an awkward but meaningful half-hug. "We'll do better moving forward," he promised. "If you'll give us the chance." I established clear boundaries for our future relationship. No more dismissing my choices, no comparing paths as though one had more inherent value, and respect for the life Amanda and I had built. They agreed, promising to visit regularly on these new terms. After everyone had left, Amanda and I sat on our terrace watching stars appear over the ocean. The house felt different somehow, as though the weekend had transformed it from a symbol of proving myself into simply our home. "What are you thinking?" she asked, noticing my contemplative expression. "About how much energy I wasted seeking approval from people who couldn't give it," I replied honestly. "The real freedom wasn't in making money or buying this house. It was in realizing that success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about living authentically according to your own values." The journey from being called trash for lacking a degree to building a $26 million net worth had taught me lessons no university could provide. True wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the freedom to create a life aligned with my authentic self. The peace I'd found came not from my family's belated approval, but from finally, completely accepting myself. In the months that followed, we established a foundation providing mentorship and seed funding to young entrepreneurs without college degrees. The first cohort included brilliant minds who thought differently, saw opportunities others missed, and approached problems with unconventional solutions. Watching them grow reminded me daily of the younger version of myself who had walked away from his family's expectations to forge his own path. My relationship with my family continues evolving, sometimes forward, occasionally backward, never perfect. Real reconciliation isn't a single moment, but an ongoing process requiring effort from all sides. The important difference is that we now meet as adults with mutual respect rather than judge and judged. What's your story of defying expectations or finding success on your own terms? Drop a comment below, letting me know if you've ever had to choose between others' approval and your authentic path. Hit subscribe if this resonated with you. Give this video a thumbs up if you believe success comes in many forms, and share with someone who might need encouragement to follow their unique journey. Remember, the most powerful success stories aren't written by following someone else's blueprint, but by having the courage to create your own.